There's a certain kind of person you can't reason with, no matter how much proof you bring, no matter how calmly you speak, no matter how much love you show. They rewrite history, twist your words, and somehow turn every confrontation into a stage where they play the victim and you become the villain. If you've ever dealt with someone like that, you know how exhausting it is to keep defending yourself. You start to wonder if you're losing your mind, if you're the problem, or if maybe you just haven't explained yourself well enough. But what if the problem isn't your approach? What if the problem is that you're fighting the wrong way? Because there's a way to win against a narcissist that doesn't involve shouting, proving, or exposing. And it's not just a smart strategy. It's the one God's been telling you to use all along. When you confront a narcissist, you think maybe, just maybe, they'll stop for a second, see themselves clearly, and realize the damage they've done. You believe that if you can just explain it the right way, with the right words, in the right tone, they'll finally understand. But that's not how it works. To a narcissist, your confrontation isn't a moment of reflection. It's a moment of opportunity. They don't hear your heart, they hear a challenge. And the more passionately you try to make your point, the more they dig in their heels, twist your words, and turn the situation into something it never was. They thrive on the energy of conflict. It's like oxygen to them. When you call them out, you're not putting out their fire, you're feeding it. They take your emotions and use them against you. If you're hurt, they call you too sensitive. If you're angry, they call you crazy. If you're calm, they'll try to provoke you until you break. To them, every reaction is proof that they still have control over your mind, your mood, and your peace. It's not that they don't understand what you're saying. Many times they understand perfectly well. They just don't care. Their priority is not truth, it's dominance. And when you confront them, you're stepping into their arena where the rules are written to benefit them and trap you. They know how to spin the story, how to make themselves the victim, and how to make you doubt yourself. The very act of calling them out gives them a fresh stage to perform on. You might go into the conversation thinking you're bringing light to darkness, but in their mind, you've just brought more wood to their fire. They'll throw accusations back at you, not because they're true, but because it shifts the spotlight. Suddenly, you're defending yourself, explaining yourself, and questioning your own memory of events. They've pulled you away from the point and into their web of confusion. That's not an accident. That's the plan. Narcissists have an uncanny ability to turn every confrontation into proof of their own narrative. If they've been telling people you're unstable or difficult, your reaction during the call out becomes their evidence. They'll point to it as if to say, see, this is exactly what I was talking about. And the worst part is they believe their own version of events. Over time, you start realizing that arguing with them is like arguing with a storm. No matter how loud you get, you're never going to change the wind's direction. The emotional toll this takes is heavy. You walk away from the conversation feeling drained, unheard, and sometimes even guilty, even though you were the one wronged. You start replaying the words in your head, wondering if you could have phrased something differently, wondering if maybe you were overreacting. That's how deep their manipulation runs. You enter the confrontation certain about the truth and leave it doubting yourself. The more you try to prove your point, the more control you give them. This is why your peace is never found in proving them wrong. It's found in refusing to play the game. Every time you refuse to engage in their baiting, every time you walk away instead of explaining yourself, you're taking back a piece of your power. But calling them out, that keeps you on the battlefield they've been training on for years. Narcissists feed off reactions, and confrontation is the richest meal you can serve them. It's emotional fuel that keeps their ego running. They know that as long as you're reacting, you're still invested in them, still affected by them, still giving them a place in your head and your heart. And they'll take every drop of that energy, not to heal, but to keep control. You have to understand that for a narcissist, a call out isn't a warning, it's a win. It tells them they still have the power to get under your skin. And once they know they can do that, they'll keep pressing the same buttons, because that's how they maintain control. It's not about resolution for them. It's about winning, even if that win destroys the relationship, the trust, and the truth. When you love someone, it's natural to want to help them grow. You want to see them become the best version of themselves, to live in truth, to heal from whatever brokenness is twisting their behavior. But here's the reality. Not everyone wants to change, and God never placed the burden of changing another person on your shoulders. That's His work, not yours. We often confuse compassion with responsibility. We think if I don't help them, who will? Or if I just keep showing them love and patience, they'll finally see what they're doing and stop. But with a narcissist, that's not how the story goes. Your kindness doesn't convict them, it enables them. Your willingness to overlook their behavior, hoping for better days, often gives them more space to continue their pattern. Guarding your heart doesn't mean you stop caring about people. It means you stop allowing their dysfunction to damage your soul. The Bible never said, "Pour yourself out until you have nothing left for yourself." It said, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. That means your peace, your joy, your clarity, and your purpose all depend on the condition of your heart. If you hand that heart over to someone who tramples it, you're giving away the very life God entrusted you to protect. Fixing someone requires you to carry the weight of their choices. Guarding your heart requires you to give that weight to God and step out of the way. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is remove yourself from the cycle so God can deal with them without you standing in the middle, getting hurt. It's not your job to be their wake-up call. You are not their savior. You already have one, and so do they. The trap is believing that your love is enough to transform them. But love alone doesn't heal someone who refuses to acknowledge they're sick. Even Jesus didn't force Himself on those who rejected Him. He spoke the truth, offered the way, and let people choose. And when they chose wrong, He moved on to the next town. That's not cruelty. That's wisdom. Guarding your heart might mean setting boundaries they don't like. It might mean cutting off access to your emotions, your time, and your energy. And yes, they'll accuse you of being cold or selfish. But remember, those accusations are just noise to pull you back into the same old game. God didn't call you to preserve their comfort. He called you to protect your calling. When you guard your heart, you close the door on manipulation. You stop being a constant supply for their ego. You refuse to be the emotional punching bag that absorbs all their frustration. And the moment you do that, you start healing. Because guarding your heart isn't about building walls of bitterness. It's about building gates of wisdom. You decide who gets access and how much. You let in what nourishes you and keep out what drains you. And here's the freeing truth. If God wanted you to be the one to fix them, He would have equipped you with the power to change their heart. But only He can do that. Your job is to stay healthy, stay rooted in Him, and keep your heart protected. So when the right people come into your life, you still have love, trust, and peace to give. When you're dealing with a narcissist, they thrive on pulling you into battles you never wanted to fight. They poke, prod, and push until you react because your reaction is their fuel. They know that if they can get you to raise your voice, defend yourself, or spill your emotions, they've got the upper hand. That's why silence is such a powerful tool. It's the one thing they can't twist, interrupt, or use against you. Silence doesn't mean you're ignoring the problem. It means you're refusing to play on their battlefield. When you choose not to respond, you're cutting off the oxygen to their fire. You're taking away the drama they depend on to feel powerful. And the beauty of silence is that it's not just the absence of words, it's the presence of control. It says, I am not giving you access to my peace. The narcissist will call your silence cowardly, immature, or passive-aggressive. That's because it scares them. When you stop engaging, you take away their ability to steer the conversation, to bait you into defending yourself, or to make you feel guilty. They lose the hook they use to keep you emotionally tangled. Silence is strategic. It gives you time to think before you act, to pray before you speak, to choose your next step with a clear head instead of a wounded heart. It keeps you from saying things in the heat of the moment that they could twist into ammunition. And most importantly, it communicates that you will not be dragged into the chaos they create. It's not weakness to refuse a fight. In fact, it takes more strength to hold your tongue than to lash out. It's easy to react. It's hard to stay calm when someone is pushing every button you have. But when you master silence, you're telling them, without a single word, you no longer have the power to control me. Your silence also forces them to face themselves. When there's no one left to argue with, no one left to defend against, they're left with their own thoughts. and that's the one place they can't manipulate. It unsettles them because they can't script your next move or predict your reaction. They can only guess, and that uncertainty weakens their control. People often think silence is retreat, but in reality, it's repositioning. You're stepping out of the chaos so you can see clearly. You're keeping your dignity intact while they show exactly who they are. And the truth is, the less you speak, the more your absence speaks for you. They notice when the constant source of emotional energy they used to feed on is no longer available. Choosing silence is not about winning or losing the argument. It's about stepping off the battlefield entirely. It's about saying, this is not worth my peace, my energy, or my calling. And in a world where everyone feels the need to have the last word, sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. When someone's been lying, manipulating, or playing games behind the scenes, everything in you wants the truth to come out. You want everyone to see what you've seen, to finally understand the reality you've been living in. And there's a deep ache in that because you know the damage they've caused, and it feels unfair that they can just keep going without consequence. But here's the thing, God never told you to take the role of public prosecutor. He didn't hand you the responsibility of making sure everyone knows who they really are. What he did give you is peace, and your job is to guard it like your life depends on it, because it does. The truth will come out in time, but it doesn't have to come from your lips. The need to expose often comes from a place of pain, and pain will push you to act in ways that don't always serve your healing. If you make it your mission to reveal them, you'll find yourself chasing every rumor, defending every detail, and living in a constant state of frustration when people still choose to believe the facade. That's exhausting. And while you're doing all that, your peace is slipping away. Protecting your peace means choosing where to spend your energy. When you focus on proving who they are, they're still the center of your life, still controlling your time, your emotions, and your thoughts. But when you let go of the need to make everyone see, you shift the spotlight back where it belongs, on your own life, your healing, and your future. That's where God wants your focus. And here's the truth, God is a far better exposer than you will ever be. He sees everything, knows everything, and has a perfect sense of timing. Sometimes he will let them run free for a while, not because he's ignoring the situation, but because he's letting the rope play out until they tie their own knots. Your silence, your absence, and your refusal to engage will speak volumes over time, and when their mask slips, it will be undeniable. It's not your responsibility to convince people who are committed to believing a lie. The ones who need to see the truth will see it, and the ones who don't want to won't. And chasing their approval or understanding is a losing game. Peace is found when you stop trying to manage other people's perception and start resting in God's protection. Protecting the peace he gave you isn't selfish, it's obedience. It's saying, Lord, you've given me clarity, you've given me freedom, and I'm not going to hand it back just so I can try to win an argument. Peace is a gift, but it's also a boundary. When you let anyone threaten it, you're saying their chaos matters more than God's blessing. And the moment you realize your peace is worth more than their exposure, you stop fighting battles that were never yours to fight in the first place. When you're dealing with someone who twists words, shifts blame, and refuses to take responsibility, arguing feels like running in circles. You think if you can just lay out the facts, if you can just present your case clearly enough, they'll have no choice but to admit the truth. But they won't. Not because the truth isn't there, but because acknowledging it would require humility they don't have. The trap is believing that the win comes from them finally saying, "You're right, that almost never happens." And even if it did, it wouldn't erase the hurt they've caused or undo the damage. The real victory isn't in convincing them, it's in refusing to let them pull you back into the same exhausting pattern over and over again. Walking away doesn't mean you've lost. It means you've chosen not to keep investing your energy into a fight that can't be won with words. Arguments with a narcissist aren't designed to reach resolution, they're designed to drain you. The more you engage, the more they twist the narrative and the more your peace slips away. But when you walk away, you break that cycle. It takes more strength to leave than to stay and try to force an outcome. Walking away says, I know my worth and I'm not going to waste it here. It says, this fight isn't worth my peace, my clarity, or my future. It's not about pride, it's about protection. Some people see walking away as surrender, but it's actually strategy. You're choosing to conserve your energy for the battles that matter, the ones that actually lead to growth, healing, and progress. You're saying, I don't have to prove myself to you to know who I am. That's power they can't touch. And here's the truth. Some of the biggest breakthroughs in life happen in the quiet after you've walked away. That's when you realize how much of your life was being consumed by the argument, by the constant defense, by the need to explain yourself. When you step out, you create space for peace to return and for God to move in ways He couldn't while you were still tangled in the fight. Walking away isn't giving up, it's growing up. It's recognizing that the argument was never about truth, it was about control. And the moment you step out of the ring, the fight is over because it takes two to keep it going. In that silence, you reclaim your time, your energy, and your dignity. And that's a victory no argument could ever give you. When someone's been lying about you, twisting your words, or painting you in a light that isn't true, everything in you wants to speak up. You want to defend yourself, set the record straight, and make sure people know the real story. That's human nature. But here's the thing, God sees every hidden thing, and He has a way of bringing truth to the surface without you having to force it. When you stay obedient to Him, you position yourself in a place where He can fight for you. Obedience doesn't always feel satisfying in the moment. It can feel like you're letting them get away with it. It can feel like you're staying silent while the lies spread unchecked. But obedience isn't about how it feels. It's about trusting God's process over your own impulses. He knows how to deal with hearts, how to remove masks, and how to reveal motives in a way that no argument ever could. When you follow His lead, even when it means staying quiet, walking away, or choosing peace over proving a point, you take the fight out of your hands and place it in His. And God doesn't just expose people, He does it in His timing, which is always perfect. He knows the exact moment when the truth will have the greatest impact and the exact way to let it be seen without you having to get your hands dirty in the process. The truth about narcissists is that they eventually reveal themselves. They can keep the mask on for a while, but patterns always surface. And when you're living in obedience, you won't have to scramble to defend yourself, because by the time the mask slips, people will remember your character. They'll remember how you stayed calm, how you didn't retaliate, how you continued to walk in integrity when it would have been easier to fight dirty. Your obedience becomes your defense. The way you carry yourself becomes your testimony. People may not believe you in the beginning, but over time, the fruit speaks for itself. Lies fade, reputations shift, and truth rises, not because you shouted it from the rooftops, but because you trusted the one who promised to be your vindicator. This is why staying in alignment with God matters so much. The enemy's strategy is to bait you into reacting in ways that ruin your credibility, to get you so frustrated that you abandon your values just to get a win. But when you resist that bait and choose obedience, you keep your integrity intact, and integrity is louder than any accusation. God has a way of making sure the right people see the truth at the right time. You don't have to chase it, force it, or manipulate it. You just have to keep walking in the direction He's called you to. And when the moment comes, the truth will speak for itself without you ever having to announce it. At the end of the day, dealing with a narcissist isn't about proving them wrong, exposing their lies, or winning the argument. It's about protecting the heart and peace God has given you. Every moment you choose silence over chaos, boundaries over battles, and obedience over impulse, you're taking back control of your life in the most powerful way possible. You're showing that you know who you are, whose you are, and that no one gets to dictate your worth or your truth except God Himself. The fire they try to start will burn out on its own when you stop feeding it. The lies they tell will collapse under their own weight when you stay rooted in integrity. And the truth will rise, not because you shouted it, but because God made it undeniable. So stop carrying the burden He never asked you to bear and start walking in the freedom He's already given you. That is how you win.